For today's class, you need to have a bolster. If you don't have a bolster, 2 bed pillows will work really well. If you've got a yoga block, that'll be useful. If not, something like that, whether it's a rolled up yoga mat. So if you are new to the roll, a rolled up yoga mat or a rolled up towel. I've taped mine just so that it doesn't disintegrate every time that I use it, and I can use it as something to squeeze against, but I can also use it as a prop in place of a block if you can't get a hold of one of those just now, because they're premium items. Probably pick one up for £100. To begin with, we're going to start seated but not for very long. Right, so if you know that your back is really growly or you need some support for your shoulders or your hips, then do this as hands behind, so you're almost in a little bit of a back brace. This will take the pressure off of your hips, but aim to simply have the head up and then close your eyes. Some of you might be fine in a more seated position, so long as you don't feel like you're rounded through your lower back. If you do feel like you're rounded in your lower back, that's going to get really uncomfortable and is setting the tone for the class in a way that isn't useful moving forwards. So this class is gentle flow. For the last few sessions, I've been encouraging you to really step into the responsibility for that sitting with you. So how strongly you press the poses is down to you. So throughout the years I've spent practicing yoga, I've been to classes where it's been super intense and classes where it's been super gentle, and the poses have been the same. It's been almost the exact same list of poses. And so it is sort of revealing to you that there aren't necessarily poses that are very evil, but that there are ways of working them, ways of sequencing them, and ways of participating in them that will change that. So if you know that you're looking for something high octane, that isn't the way that I'm going to frame today's session. I want you to allow yourself to step into that feel of softening and exploring what reveals itself when you start working in that way. And if you know that you are an intensity junkie, control freaky kind of temperament, that can be very challenging. So to give you a feel for today's movements, we'll be doing a bit of mobility just to get things moving, and then moving into the pranayama and the sort of passive hip opening before then starting to explore the sort of gentle flow aspect. So it's almost like I'm getting you to do the warm-up I'd like you to do off camera, on camera, and then the class will have its formal start time. So for now, with that said, come into a tabletop position. In your tabletop position for now, turn your hands so the fingers point outwards, and simply start to feel for an inhale, pushing the floor away and lifting between the shoulder blades. So not necessarily accompanied by dropping the head. Exhale, draw your shoulder blades back and squeeze the shoulder blades towards each other with the arms straight. If you're feeling like weight bearing on your wrists and elbows is too strong, do this with the arms a bit further back so the hips are sitting back. Deep breath in, lift and dome between the shoulder blades. Exhale, squeeze the shoulder blades back. Inhale, lift between the shoulder blades. Head is staying pretty neutral. Exhale, squeeze shoulder blades back. Inhale, lift and spread. Exhale, squeeze shoulder blades towards each other. With the shoulder blades in this squeezed back place, start to glide your torso from side to side. Grip the floor with your fingertips so you're beginning to warm up your wrists. So even in a gentle flow class, there are going to be movements where we're weight bearing on the hands. So good thing to factor in to warming up. Now as you do this shift of side to side, begin to incorporate into that almost serpentine-like movement. So you're bringing the right shoulder towards the right hip, then the left shoulder towards the left hip. So simply getting the joints moving, waking things up a little bit more. And depending on the music you've put on, it could be something quite salacious. Now do the same movements, but lifting up between your shoulder blades. So that doming up action. This can still be done seated, so with the hips towards the heels, so especially if the wrists or the elbows are feeling really grouchy. So you can still do this leaning back. I mean, if you don't want to weight bear, you can totally work these movements on your fingertips instead. All right, now inhale, come back forwards onto your hands. If it is, again, a wrist sensitive day, can you do this perhaps braced onto the fists? Perhaps it's down onto the elbows and pressing downwards with the arms. Tension in the hands will actually help create a little bit more awareness and support through all these different parts that you're weight bearing with. So that's an option. Moving through some hip mobility. It will start off on the first 2 rounds feeling a little bit clunky and a bit square, and then the next 2 rounds the aim is to make it super smooth so it feels more circular. I do toes tucked because I prefer that to keep my hips level rather than allowing them to go all over the place, which they want to do. Draw the abdomen away from the mat. Inhale to lift your right leg up. Do a little look over that right shoulder and then check, is the shin bone at a diagonal? Can you straighten it up and then lift the leg without collapsing in the lower back? So the leg is lifting. Deep breath in. Exhale, bring the knee down underneath your hip and squeeze it towards your right arm. So it's going beyond where it normally goes, but without rounding your back. Inhale, open the right knee out to the right without lifting the right buttock. Exhale, take the leg towards the back, knee goes back, heel goes up. So that's the first one. Deep breath in. Exhale, bring the knee downwards and in towards your chest. Inhale, open the knee out to the side. Exhale, reach the leg straight back. Now aiming to do the lower part of that on the exhale and the lifting up part on the inhale. Exhale, bring the knee down, opening out to the side, making it circular. Inhaling to take the leg up and back. Exhale, bring the knee down. Inhale, rolling the hip open. Do 2 more like that. After that second independent, set the knee down. So aiming just to get your hip joints lubricated and to build some awareness in the core. Remember, wrist sensitive, you can do this down on the elbows or even down on one elbow. So if you're down on the right forearm, you can be on the left hand. So simply playing around with what will work best. Inhale, lift the left leg. Do a quick check. Get the thigh bone so that it's tracking straight back, shin straight up. Level the hips. Draw the abdomen away from the mat. Take a wee look forwards, but tuck the chin. Deep breath in. Exhale, bring the knee down and then squeeze it in towards your ribs. Inhale, open the left knee out to the left. Exhale, reach the leg straight up and back. Deep breath in. Exhale, knee is coming down and in towards chest. Inhale, open the knee out to the side. Exhale, rotate as you reach the leg back. Now aiming to make it a bit smoother. Exhale, knee is coming down, opening out to the side, inhaling, lifting and circling the leg back, heel up. Exhale, draw down, aiming to keep the low back stable. Inhaling to open out to the side, taking the leg back. Do 2 more. Make it super smooth and silky. After that second one, bring yourself up from there. I want to show you this next piece. The first pose will be static, and then we're going to move things a little bit more. I prefer to use the roll for this part. If you've got a bolster, that will work. So it starts, left heel, left hip, left hand in a straight line. The right leg is over the top. So this is part 1. If this is too strong on your wrist, you can do this on the left elbow. When you have finished that up, the foot then goes down and the legs are on the floor. It starts on the elbow and it goes slight oblique crunch, inhaling to lift the hips up so it's a little side bend, and exhaling to bring it back. So it creates this side bend, but is getting your oblique switching on while speaking to the hips a little bit ahead of where we're heading with our movements today. So starting with that first lunge, which is pretty passive, set the roll or the block or the bolster at the back of your mat. The left leg is going on there. I like to make sure that it is the leg bones rather than the foot bones that are on there. Line up left hand, left hip, left heel. And bring the right leg over the top, aiming that your pelvis isn't facing up, actually that it's facing the side of the room, and feeling the stretch coming into left side low belly. I've got my left hand out a little bit so it's not directly under the shoulder, and allowing the left shoulder to come up. This pose is enhanced by deep breathing. So it doesn't need to mean powerful, really like blast through the wall breath, but something that is very thorough. And when you breathe in that way, you should feel a response in the tissue at left side low belly, maybe even into the left hip. Some of you will get feedback in your right hip. Every time you do the exhale, do a very small pulling inwards of the abdominal tissue. And if you've still got a little bit that you can work with, squeeze the left buttock muscles, so left sit bone muscles specifically, up towards the ceiling, creating a change of tone in the lower leg. Remember, wrist sensitive, you can do this on the elbow. If your couch is handy, you can drape that entire arm over the couch and kind of sit on that. So it's kind of hooked into your armpit. So we're all about improvising. All right, now as a big side bend, roll your chest to face up to get out of there. Move the props out of the way, still working with that left leg. Bring the right foot over and then step it. So it might be your foot is in line with your leg. Some of you might be working with the foot further up. Just see what feels appropriate. You should be able to bear down through this right foot. Come down onto the left elbow and allow your left shoulder to slide up. Pelvis is facing the side of the room. It's all very casual. And then take the right hand either behind your head or up and over. On your exhale, bring the right elbow towards your right hip, so there's a little bit of engagement into right side obliques. Inhale, push into this flexed left foot and the right foot and lift the hips up as you reach the right arm over or reach the elbow over. Exhale, lower the hips down. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. So there's a lot happening, aiming to keep the pelvis facing to the side of the room rather than up. So inhale, lift. Exhale, bring it in and squeeze right ribs towards right hip. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. Take your hands down underneath the shoulder. Walk yourself around so your right foot is now pointing forwards. You might need to creep the toes forward so they're more in line with your wrist. Instead of allowing your back to round, scoop your chest forwards. That might be made easier by setting the left knee down. Pelvis is level. Use your hands, squeezing your hands towards your left foot to help lengthen the chest forwards. Free the right arm by bending the elbow. Deep breath in. Exhale, reach the right elbow down without bending your left elbow. Inhale, lift. Exhale, reach the right elbow down. So you're twisting the rib cage. Inhale, up. Exhale, reach the right elbow downwards. It doesn't need to touch down. Inhale, lift. Exhale, reach down. Inhale, up. Exhale, reach down. Set the hand down. Step the feet back. So this time, you're going to lay down onto your right side. So starting off with the block for the passive version, so block, roll, or bolster. Right leg is going on there. Line up right foot, right hip, right hand. Left leg is coming over the top, aiming at the pelvis is facing the side of the mat rather than up, which is a little bit easier. Keep a flex in the right foot so you've got some strength in the knee, otherwise the knee can do odd things here. Right shoulder is up. Maybe you're doing this on the elbow if it's wrist sensitive. You can also play with other directions to point your fingers. Now bring back a steady breath. So obviously we moved into a more dynamic inhale, do this, exhale, do this. At this point, your aim is to breathe in an expansive way. So feeling how the tissue on that right side is opening up. If you're curious, you can use your left fingertips and begin to pull on the tissue around your obliques, even down into the front of the pelvis. So if you know like the AS, top bony prominent part of your pelvis, you can pull on the tissue around there and feel all the different connections that are tight, even working your hand around towards your low back muscles and the QL groups. Squeeze right sit bone muscles up towards the ceiling. So it's a deceptive big old side bend. Alright, roll out of that. Move the props out of the way. The left leg is coming up and over so you can set the foot down. So finding where it can go, maybe it's closer to the front of the mat, maybe it's more in line with your hip. And then come down onto your right elbow. Allow the right shoulder to come up. Left hand is either free or behind your head. Squeeze your left ribs towards your left hip. Inhale, push down into the right arm. Lift the pelvis, reach the left elbow overhead or the left arm overhead so you create a side bend. Exhale, take this little abdominal crunch, left ribs, left elbow towards left hip. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. So there's a really strong press down through that left foot. Inhale, lift. Exhale, squeeze left ribs towards left hip. Inhale, lift. Exhale, bring it in. Inhale, open up. Exhale, bring it in. Inhale, open up. Now this time, bring the left hand down, set your right knee down and walk your hands around. Left leg is coming forwards. Tuck the right toes and feel for scooping your rib cage forwards. Maybe you're doing this with the left knee down. Tendency is to drop the right side of the pelvis down. Level your hips so you feel like the front of the pelvis is level. And lengthen the chest. Wrist sensitive, do what you need to do with that right hand. Free the left hand, deep breath in. Exhale, reach the left arm down so the right arm stays exactly as it is. Inhale, lift. Exhale, reach left arm downwards. Inhale, lift. Exhale, reach left arm down. Inhale, up. 2 more. Exhale, reach left elbow down. Inhale, lift. Exhale, reach left elbow down. Inhale, lift. Set the hands down. Turn the left foot in and walk yourself around so you're coming into a straddle forward bend. Line up the feet, so aiming for feet to be parallel. Toes actually very slightly turned in, and then bend the knees. Take the weight over your hands and lengthen your chest forward. Shoulder blades draw down. So we're doing cat in this place, so it's a very wide-legged cat. Exhale, tuck tailbone down, round into your back, head is coming down, push into your hands. Inhale, tilt the pelvis the other way, pelvis moves first, then abdomen, then chest, then lift the head. Exhale, tuck tailbone down, round into the back. Inhale, scoop chest forwards, lengthening ribs forwards. Exhale, tuck tailbone down, round into the back. Inhale, scoop chest forwards. All right, now from this place, you're going to step one foot in, take the knee down, and then the other. Now it's time to set up some of the props. So you're going to be working with bolster or 2 bed pillows or whatever. If you have nothing, then you can also do this with nothing. If you're using the bolster, I usually prefer, especially if it's a morning practice or you're using this as an entry point into your hips and your lower back, to work with a bit of an angle. It makes things a bit more forgiving. And instead of going to your absolute depth, which there is no real purpose in you doing, instead of going to your absolute depth, go to the place where you can still navigate other options, like pressing into a foot, doing more tuck tailbone, working more rotation. Sometimes when you're at the edge, the only thing you can do is stay still and wait for it to finish, which I don't think is conducive to where we're going. So if you're using the bolster or pillows or whatever you're using, you're coming down and coming into Baddha Konasana. Head is supported and down. So you could do this pose completely laying on your back without any props whatsoever, and that would work just fine. Draw your shoulders down away from your ears and bring the palms so they face up. How close the feet are is really personal preference. You might find feet further away gives you more opportunity to open up into the hips. Some of you feet closer may do the same. So just feel where it works. Close your eyes and then switch on deep breathing. So think about the work that we've done so far. Side ribs, shoulders, abdominals, some of those postural muscles in the back, and a little bit of core work. We've kind of opened things up and given everything a wee bit of a shake out, cobwebs blown out. So hopefully this pose feels more responsive. Now explore it with deep breathing. If you're staring up, go ahead and close your eyes. Take the invitation to go inwards. You're doing 2 rounds of Uddiyana Kriya. To do this, you'll do a deep breath in and exhale through the mouth, holding your breath empty and allowing the diaphragm to scoop up, flaring the low ribs. Take a deep breath in. Exhale through the mouth. Hold your breath, don't inhale. Scoop ribs and diaphragm up, holding for as long as is interesting. Two more. After your third Uddiyana, use your hands to assist the legs in. You're coming into twisted root-ish. Set the feet so they're hip distance and parallel. Cross your left thigh over your right thigh, but don't hook the foot. Move your right foot over to the left a wee bit. Now your aim is to actively work this left leg. So the left foot is moving towards your right leg, but don't hook it. All right, so we're working a little bit of active internal rotation. What is going to happen? We're doing our second pranayama. Viloma pranayama is done by splitting the inhale into 4 equal parts. So it'll be an inhale, a slight pause, inhale halfway full, slight pause, 3/4, pause, full, pause. Then a very slow, very third exhale. And that counts as 1 round. So you'll be doing 2 rounds with the legs like this, and then 2 rounds switching the legs the other way, doing that emphasis of internal rotation during the pranayama. This can be done fully supine if you wish it instead. Okay, so still on that left side, actively recruit those internal rotators. The right side can join in, but the foot can't really go anywhere. And the head is down. Do an exhale through the mouth until empty. Inhale through the nose, ideally, until 1/4 full. Inhale till halfway full. 3/4 full. Completely full. Exhale through the nose with Ujjayi. Do 1 more round, splitting the inhale into 4 parts. Then change the legs and do 2 rounds on the other side. And allow yourself to get curious about this. There's no targets to beat, there's no neighbor to sense how far they're going. It's allowing you to explore your own breath parameters. I think that's a really interesting way to work. So especially if you struggle with group classes, like for me, I just can't handle it. Hey, you see me in a yoga class, I don't know, something must have happened. After that second independent round, set the feet down, roll to one side, and then use your arms to come up. Now, some of you are going to keep the props as they are. I'm going to present 2 different options for you here. For some of you with knee stuff, half Virasana is a no-go, all right? So even if, this sometimes happens, if you've got knee stuff and you know you've got knee stuff, sometimes the tendency is to just grin and bear it. Pain is a signal that what you are doing needs to change, not that you should keep going until it no longer feels sore. I don't think it works that way. Has it worked for you so far? I very much doubt it. So here is an option if you've got knee stuff, but it is by no means a fix-all. So I will show you the main pose and then I will show you its options. So the main pose, instead of taking his props out too early, the main pose is half Virasana. So one foot is back, the butt is on the ground, and leaning back. This other foot is flat and the head is resting back. So this is option 1. Some of you, the quad mobility will be limited and it's tricky to get back at all in that instance. So you might find that elevating yourself opens the angle of the knee a little bit, allowing you to start to work back, and it will probably be on hands, okay? Depending on how high the props are, you might then be able to interface with the other props behind you, perhaps. If your knee is not willing to negotiate that angle, then I would rather see you work a supine knee to chest, because if you think about how the legs are there, it's very similar to a lunge position. So I would rather see, without any props, an active knee to chest with the other leg reaching away. And this is going to create like an opening sensation in the front of the legs that will allow us to move into the region of kind of this sort of split leg position. Okie dokie. It is your turn. So making a decision. Oh, also you could, if lunge heel to butt works better for your knee, then work lunge heel to butt, and I'll let you know when to switch sides. So if you're doing half virasana, whichever leg you've taken back, the other foot is flat. Maybe you're sitting on the block, maybe you're working supine knee to chest or a lunge with the heel to the butt. If you're working with the props, then you're leaning back onto maybe your hands, maybe you are able to get down onto the bolster, and then the head is down. Create a little bit of response here. Left foot, or whichever foot is the flat foot, curl your tailbone under. The same goes if you're in that lunge, then tuck tailbone down. Allow yourself to be here. And whatever foot is in the heel to butt is doing a bit of a push down. So if you're upright, doing a lunge, you're pushing your foot into your head. If you're in the heel to butt, you're pressing the foot down into the floor. Breathe in a way that helps you speak to the lower abdominals. So especially as we begin a journey towards the postures of the lower back, and I don't mean postures that are for the lower back, I mean more, how is your lower back posture? Are you really curled under? Like, what is there? The quadriceps, what we're working right now, play a massive, massive part. So in general, when I'm doing classes, I like people to open their quadriceps, then they start to work into their hamstrings, then they start to work into their lower back muscles, then they start to work into muscles like psoas. So a bit of an order of events for creating postural change. You're not going to get there without the quad opening. So if you have your right foot in the heel to butt, roll to your left to come up. So it'll take you out of the pressure of the knee and bring yourself around. Switching legs. Now you might find that you are happy doing the heel to butt on one side, and at the second side your knee isn't so happy with it. Change the option. So maybe you're doing this one as a lunge heel to butt. The essence of the pose is still there. It's just a slightly different weight bearing. So feel what works. If you're doing half virasana, start to lean it back. So maybe you're on hands, maybe you're on elbows, maybe you're on bolster. And so this is where it becomes very experiential. For some of you, these poses may not register much. And if you just scoffed aloud, then you're on the other end of the spectrum where you feel muchly lots. So it very much depends. If you're working the half virasana lean back, curl your tailbone under so you feel like you're on your sacrum rather than your sit bones if you've gone back. A resolute press down through the foot that is flat will work really well. Lunge heel to butt people thinking about drawing the heel in, I don't mind whether it is same arm, same leg, or a twisted version. Laying down on the back knees to chest, aiming that your tailbone isn't curling up. So you want to feel for a neutral pelvis rather than a curling in pelvis. Easier said than done. And half virasana people, breathing in a way that speaks to the lower abdomen is useful. So remember, our aim is not to go to your most definitive edge, but to simply create release of tension so that later things start to move differently. So still very much in like the warm-up section. We only just did the pranayama. The other stuff was extra. Okay, to exit, roll to your right. Bring yourself up from there. Swing that leg around. Now, if there are props on your mat, take them out of there. You're coming back down onto your back though. So you're coming down for dead bug. A little note about dead bug. So frequently when I see this pose being done, I see a craning in the neck, so especially if you know the upper back posture is a challenge for you, and lower back, I see this manifest in this pose in the same way. If your pelvis is curling up from the mat in dead bug, you're like, oh my god, look how flexible I am, then actually not much has happened. All you've done is like pulled your lower spine into an arc. I'm more interested in you feeling pressing the sacrum down. That might mean your legs are slightly less bent, and then also pressing down through the back of your skull. So we get this very firm pose. If it feels too strong or it's difficult to hold your feet, work one leg at a time, but feeling pelvis is pressing down, head is pressing down, and a very slight chin tuck, so your neck muscles are working. Okay, come on down if you haven't already. Dead bug. Arms are to the inside of wide knees. Hands go to the outside edges of the feet. Bring the soles of the feet up. So aiming that the toes are pointing to the back of the room rather than turned out for now. Yes, there is a turned out version. I'm interested in parallel for now. Get a feel, has your tailbone curled up? If so, go ahead and press your pelvis back down into the yoga mat. If your head is up and you feel like nothing you do is going to change that, this might be where you put something under your head, like a blanket. If you put something under your head, but all that needed to happen is tuck your chin, I would prefer that you tucked your chin. That will lead to the postural change you're looking for. Constantly propping will not. It will simply allow your body to adopt that position more easily. So I'm a big fan of props, as you know, but I think it is good to use discernment when always reaching for them. Inhale, press your feet into your hands. Exhale, pull your hands into your feet. Actively press your pelvis towards the mat. Now it can be good here to take a little bit of movement side to side if your SI joints are happy with that. Sometimes mine are happy with it, sometimes they are really not happy with it. As soon as you start to pull down on one leg, you'll probably feel like the SI joints are not happy with that. Alright, release the feet then. Roll to your left hand side. Use your arms to bring yourself up. And then left hand on the side of the head brings your head up. You're coming into moon salutation. For moon salutation, I like people to start at the back of their mat so that they get this extended arm distance at the front. It does start kneeling, and if your hips do not like that, then you can do this sitting on the block, again, opening up the angle of the knees. It's not Virasana, it's just a variation. Obviously you can't have your feet together if you're sitting on the block. But your aim is to be moving dynamically through this. If that still doesn't work, but for some reason your knees are happy with this alternative, then your moon salutation could go inhale, arms up, cross-legged forward bend, rolling forwards over the knees into tabletop. And the same on the way back. So working that transition instead of the kneeling transition. That one is slightly more complex, but if your knees are happier with that than the bent back, they might be happy with a little bit of twist torque, but not happy with directly drawing back. Maybe that'll work better for you. So, I'm assuming you're doing things. Have your hips so that they are roughly above your heels, unless you're sitting cross-legged. Bring your shoulders above your hips, and then lift your head. Close your eyes. Switch on deep breathing. If you work with terms like Uddiyana Bandha and Mula Bandha, I don't really work with any of these in my classes. Instead, allow your abdomen to move. So thinking that every breath is a full yogic breath, and using the exhale to pull the belly muscles in to help generate a very thorough exhale. So there's movement. There is also awareness. Reconnect that the onus is on you to make this soft rather than frantic. So especially if dynamic movement starts to give you the heebie-jeebies, the movements are simple and cyclical. You might find if you come back to this class again and again, Familiarity will make up a huge part of your comfort with these. Inhale, bring the arms up, palms face one another and allow the rib cage to lift. Child's pose. Exhale, hands come down, slide the hands forwards as you lower down. This will also give you a safe way of navigating the depth of the pose, so maybe you're further up. Tabletop. Inhale, move your shoulders in front of your wrists. Downward facing dog. Exhale, tuck toes, lift knees up. Cat. Inhale, knees go down, lift your skull, lift your sit bones. So it's the back bending part of cat. Child's pose. Exhale, press the hips back. Inhale, slide the hands in, bring the arms up. Exhale, hands come in at chest. So allowing yourself to get this movement forwards and back so it feels very wave-like. Inhale, bring the arms up. Child's pose. Exhale. Tabletop. Inhale. Downward facing dog. Exhale. Point sit bones up. Cat. Inhale, knees down, lift skull, lift sit bones. Child's pose. Exhale. Inhale, slide the arms in and up. Exhale, hands come together at chest. Now there is an additional piece here at the end. At the end, we're taking a little bit of a back bend standing on the knees. So you'll be coming up, hands are coming onto the hips, and doing a little bit of a camel hands on hips action. If you were doing a cross-legged version, instead of doing that, I would rather use hands behind, and press the hips forwards, and then lower the hips down. So it's a little bit different, rather than trying to come up and balance on your knees without that. Although you could potentially flick the legs out, come into a standing camel, bring your back, and come in, but it starts to get a little too exciting. Okay, moon salutation, back on track, back on track. Inhale, bring the arms out. Child's pose or forward bend. Exhale. Tabletop. Inhale. Downward facing dog. Exhale. Let the neck relax. Cat. Inhale. Knees go down. Lift skull. Lift sit bones. Child's pose. Exhale. Inhale. Slide the arms back. Come up to stand on the knees. Parallel the shins. Exhale. Hands come onto hips. Tuck tailbone down. Stay here. Inhale. Lift the breastbone up. Exhale, squeeze shoulder blades back. Inhale, lift the chest back up. Exhale, sit the hips back down. Inhale, arms up. Child's pose or forward bend. Exhale. Tabletop, inhale. Downward facing dog. Exhale. Cat. Inhale, knees down, lift skull, lift sit bones. Child's pose. Exhale. Inhale, slide the hands back, come up to stand on the knees, parallel the shins. Exhale, tuck tailbone, hands on hips for the standing back bend. Inhale, come back up. Exhale, sit the hips down. Now, for the next couple of rounds, for that camel, you can repeat hands on hips, or stronger day, you'll be doing inhale, arms up. Exhale, squeeze the elbows back, so you create this cactus arm tilt. Really strong recruitment between the shoulder blades, similar to the protraction and retraction work we were doing at the start. Inhale, bring the arms up. Child's pose or forward bend. Exhale. Tabletop. Inhale, move shoulders in front of wrists. Downward facing dog. Exhale. Cat. Inhale, knees down, lift skull, lift sit bones. Child's pose or forward bend. Exhale. Inhale, drag the arms in, bring yourself up. So either cactus arms or hands on hips. Exhale, squeeze shoulder blades back. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, lower the hips down. Inhale, bring the arms up. Child's pose or forward bend. Exhale. Tabletop. Inhale, move shoulders in front of wrists. Downward facing dog. Exhale. Cat. Inhale, knees down, lift skull, lift sit bones. Child's pose. Exhale. Inhale, drag the arms back, maybe bringing the arms up or hands on hips. Exhale, tuck tailbone down, squeeze shoulder blades back. Inhale, reach the arms up. Now pause. If you're in a kneeling position with the shins pointing back, stick your butt out, arms reach forwards, and begin to lean your hips back. So as much as your knees are low. Some of you might be able to get the hips pretty low. Exhale, press down with your feet, press the hips forwards. Inhale, point your butt back. So it's kind of like a modified chair pose. Exhale, thrust hips forwards. It's early for thrusting. Inhale, lean the hips back. Exhale, press into your feet, hips move forwards. Inhale, lean back. So just building a little bit of that quadricep strength. Exhale, press. Now this time, inhale, lower the hips, bring the hands back. So moving through this salutation and adding in other pieces. Inhale, bring the arms up. Forward bend or child's pose. Exhale. Tabletop. Inhale. Downward facing dog. Exhale. Triangle. Listen up. Step your left foot through between your hands. Set the right foot so it is parallel to the back of the mat. And gradually work on straightening your left leg. Now, as you work the leg straight, you might find that it is better for you to bring the hand a little further up. Maybe the hand is on the ankle, the shin, making sure there is no direct pressure on the knee pushing downwards. Low back sensitive, you can work this as back traction, left hand as high up on the left thigh as possible and lengthening the left ribs out. I'm a big fan of this one. You do need to take care because of the way the hand is pushing into the leg. It's very easy to hyperextend the left knee. So maybe you're opening that out instead. Option to reach the right arm up. Inhale, lean the shoulders back and unfurl through your low front ribs. You're feeling for the breastbone pulling towards the front of your mat. Right arm is reaching up. Instead of twisting the neck, aim for both sides of the neck to be long and somewhat released, and that might mean for you turning your chin towards your left shoulder if that feels better. Drive into both feet. So I like to feel for a pressing away action in the legs here, so a spreading of the feet. If they're physically sliding on your mat, that's a different thing. That's going to result in a very different pose as well. Take a deep breath in. Exhale. Put your right hand on your right hip. Bend your left leg. Either put your left forearm onto your left thigh for extended warrior variation, or hand is down to the inside of the leg. Hand can stay on the hip, or reach the arm up. Or if you wish to create the side bend, take the right arm up overhead, rotating the palm to face down, but lengthening the sides of the neck. Whichever version you are doing, press into your left heel so there's a strong action of support from the legs. Fuel that with a very strong breath. Inhale, release the hands down. Step the feet back, be in a tabletop position. Cat. Inhale, lift the skull, lift the sit bones. Child's pose. Exhale. Inhale, slide the arms back, come up to stand. Cactus arms. Exhale. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, sit the hips back. Inhale, reach the arms up. Child's pose or forward bend. Exhale. Tabletop. Inhale, shoulders above wrists. Downward facing dog. Exhale. Triangle. Inhale, right foot steps through between the hands. Maybe you're pulling the foot forwards. Set the left foot so it's coming down more in line with your right foot, but parallel to the back of the mat. As you work your right leg straight, you might feel like straight means you're further up. The hand is on anywhere from the shin up, avoiding the knee, remembering that there is the option, especially if you know that side bends aggravate your back. Eventually this pose will not feel like a side bend, but initially if it does, you may want to brace the right hand into the thigh. Alternatively, working with a little bit more depth. Left arm is up. Actually, I'm taking back what I just said, working with a little bit more depth. The hand on the hip version, I find I get more out of the right hamstring here than I do when I go further down. So it isn't that it's deeper, it's just simply a different variation that provides a very different level of support. Wherever you are, inhale to scoop the chest towards the front of the mat. Exhale, do that pushing down action into the feet, so feet are active, toes lifting and spreading. If you have been working active feet with me for a wee while, switch your feet off for a second, and it just sort of feels like from the knee down, there's nothing there, like your little jelly pins. Instead, switch the feet on by lifting the toes and spreading them, gaining that tendon support for the knees as you work the muscle contractions. It's very exciting. We're heading towards a season where you want to have the best calves on the beach, where no one will be around to see them. Extended warrior. Bend into your right leg, bringing the right forearm onto the thigh. Either staying with this position, hand on the hip can work if your shoulder's feeling grumpy. Perhaps right hand is down. So left hand can be on the hip here, or reaching up. This one is particularly useful to get that rotational quality into the back muscles. Maybe the left arm is coming overhead, so you're creating that side bend feel. So not necessarily that one is harder than the other. They each create different sensations. And it's down to you to decide what feels appropriate for you today. Drive into that right heel though. Take another deep breath. Exhale, set the hands down. Cat. Inhale, step the feet back, lift skull, lift sit bones. Exhale, press the hips back. Inhale, slide the arms in, come up to stand on the knees. Camel, hands on hips, or squeeze shoulder blades. Inhale, bring the arms up. Exhale, sitting the hips down. Inhale, reach up. Child's pose or forward bend. Exhale. Tabletop, inhale, shoulders above wrists. Downward facing dog. Exhale. Have a look in between your hands. Step your left foot forwards, but set your right knee down. Do a quick check. If you drew a line straight back from your left foot, it feels like it's under your left sit bone. If you drew a line forwards from your right knee, it's about 30 centimeters away from your left foot, so they're not in line with each other. Climb up onto your left leg and then lift the right knee. Get a feel for the weight distribution forwards and back and feel even between the two. Exhale, tuck tailbone down. Inhale, bring the arms up. In this place, gradually work on straightening your right leg. You might want to lengthen your stance so you feel like you've gotten your heel of that right foot above the ball of the foot. Some of you might feel like it is getting into the quadricep plenty where it was. Inhale, lift rib cage. Exhale, square the right hip forwards. Now, this pose is traditionally taught with a pushing apart action. For today, I want you to feel for a squeezing together action. Left heel pulling back, maybe it pulls you a little closer to the ground. Right thigh switching forward, so creating that isometric contraction for the front of the leg. Gentle flow, he said. Take a deep breath. Exhale, straighten your legs. Bring the back foot in about a foot and set the foot flat. So I've got if my head is at 12 o'clock and my left foot is at 12 o'clock, the right foot is about 1:30 to 2 o'clock. Square the hips forwards, making sure the feet are still on that hip distance line. And then get a feel for the pelvic action, so tuck and tilt. It is the tilt, that butt stick out that we're looking for here. Now if back traction feels like a good thing for you, brace the hands high into the left thigh and scoop the chest forwards. Perhaps you're working a little further down the leg, but aiming that the back still feels relatively straight rather than excessively flexed. So when we move into flexion regions, I think we start to develop very different postures. So wherever you are, inhale, scoop your ribcage forwards. Exhale, draw the right hip forwards. Legs are straight but not hyperextended. Squeeze your left heel towards the back of the mat as you stick your butt out. If it's a more curious day, you can flex that left foot, drawing the toes up. It gets very spicy. But if you know that your calves certainly contribute to any aggravation in your knees, I strongly recommend it. Inhale, bend your left leg. Set the right knee down, step your left leg back. Cat. Inhale, lift the chest, lift the sit bones. Exhale, press the hips back. Inhale, slide your arms in, bring your arms up. So camel hands on hips or cactus arms. Exhale, squeeze shoulder blades back, tuck tailbone down. Inhale, bring the arms up. Exhale, sit the hips down. Inhale, reach up, so back to that moon salutation. Forward bend or child's pose. Exhale. Tabletop. Inhale, shoulders above wrists. Downward facing dog. Exhale. Warrior one, set up. Inhale, right foot comes through. Set your left knee down. Climb up onto your right foot. So doing that same check. Right heel is going back underneath your right sit bone. Left knee is going forwards, you know, a little bit away from your right foot. So two little parallel lines. Do a quick check and make sure that your foot isn't inwards. So if you know that you favor an outward rotation on the thigh, it does sometimes present itself in the default setup of your stance. So straighten things up. Lift the left knee and then feel for that shifting forwards and back. Aiming that the right knee is above the right heel, just essentially for now. And then start to work that left leg straight. Perhaps the foot has to go a little further back, so you're working with the ball of the foot and heel more in line with each other. Inhale, bring the arms up, lift chest. Exhale, wrap shoulder blades forwards, tuck tailbone down. Squeeze the feet towards each other, so right hip is drawing back, but the thigh bone is coming down. When I get that heel squeeze back, the hamstrings start to fire up, and you might find the right sit bone can come down closer to that leg. Drive the left leg back, left thigh bone is lifting. So warrior contains within it a ferociousness, but it is my hope also that you can bring in a bit of clarity and discernment. You get steady, there's no other extraneous things that can work for against you right now. Kind of in the groove. Inhale, release the hands down, straighten that right leg, shorten the stance about a foot. Still working with the feet about hip distance. Left foot is now pointing off to the left. Square hips forwards. Inhale, lift chest. Exhale, tilt the pelvis. So you're sticking your butt out, getting that length in the back. Maybe staying up here. So you might find that up here, you can get the stretch in the back of the leg, focus on the articulations of the pelvis, and build awareness in the postural muscles, specifically from your mid-back through the back muscles and between the shoulder blades and in the skull. So if you know that your posture is very rounded, stay up. Maybe hands come down. So if you know that your posture isn't excessively rounded, then maybe you can dabble with coming down and maybe it gets a bit more flexed. I like to really think of my yoga poses like a diet. What am I having too much of? And what do I need, what could I do with less of? Have I had any radishes this week? Should I have some radishes? The answer is always yes. Yes, I have had radishes, and yes, you should have some more. I did this DNA test one time, and it was just such a joke. And it was the only food group that you need more of is radishes. Really? If I just eat radishes, I'll be fine? I feel like I've gotten off topic. Alright, now bend your right leg, take your hands down, step back into cat. So inhale, lift skull, lift sit bones. Exhale, press the hips back. Inhale, slide the arms in, bring your hips up, arms up. Exhale, cactus arms or hands on hips. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, sit your hips down. Swing your legs around. So you're coming back down onto your back, moving back into dead bug. In this dead bug, you have been exploring lateral movements. You've been exploring a lot of these very linear actions in the legs. I want you to explore the differences. It is my hope that you'll be able to feel a little bit more articulation through the pelvis and hopefully a bit more recruitment posturally into your upper back and your neck. Some of you will play with straightening one leg a little bit more and the other, maybe both, paying attention to whether the pelvis is lifting or not. Okay, come on down. So knees are wide. Actively rotate the legs rather than just pulling everything with your hands. Send the feet up. Hold on to the outside edges of your feet. And start to get a feel. Maybe pressing the pelvis down. Well, not maybe, definitely pressing the pelvis down. Head is pressing down. The maybe is, maybe it feels different. And if it doesn't, oh well, we have certainly done things to move it. Now you can be here, perhaps you're starting to work on the legs straightening, maybe you're straightening one leg and then the other. If when you straighten the leg it kind of goes off on its own little adventure towards the front of the room, you're thinking thigh position stays the same and legs extending so the toes are pointing down. This is going to challenge the back of your legs a bit more rather than encouraging a rounding of the lower back. You might find if you are working straddle on the back that a change of arm position will allow you a different range of motion. From wherever you are, bring the legs in and set the feet down. It is Shavasana time, final relaxation pose. If you wish to, you can use any of the props that we have been working with. I sometimes find that after a lot of hip opening, especially outward rotation, which we've done a lot of, that either laying on my back with the knees together feels good, or doing Shavasana belly down can feel really great. So allowing the lumbar curve to restore, especially if you know that you may be round into your back in forward bend poses, that can be really useful. So choose a position for rest and know that at the end of Shavasana time, I will bring you up. I'm not just going to leave you high and dry. Gradually deepen your breath. Bring back that whisper sound to your breathing. And however you are laying, begin to create a bit of a visual. For the duration of the inhalation, a movement of energy, color, light, sparkles, lines, whatever it is for you, up the front of your body as you inhale. During the exhalation, it's going over the crown of the head, down your back, towards your sacrum. So inhaling up through the front of the body, and exhaling down through the back of the body. Either allowing yourself to attract that with awareness, or adding it in as a visualization. Stay attentive to this, and over the course of the next few breaths, make your way towards a seated position where you are. So however you need to get up from there. Once you're up, continue that visualization. Inhaling, lifting up through the front of the body. Exhaling, sensing down through the back of the body. So a good visualization to feel a sense of equilibrium. Bring your hands together at chest. Take a very deep breath in. Exhale, bow forwards. Namaste.